The Nashville Predators got shut out in Detroit on Saturday despite peppering Cam Talbot with pucks. So, what do these two opening losses of the regular season tell us about this Nashville team? We're going to talk about that, plus look at the big storylines of the week ahead, all on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this week and this Monday's episode, of course, welcoming any first-time listeners and giving a shout out to our everydayers and, of course, to our Locked On Predators insiders. We love talking Nashville Predators hockey with you, and we love kicking off the week with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Emma, we know the Predators dropped their second game of the season over the weekend to the Detroit Red Wings. On today's show, we're going to talk about what these two early losses might tell us about the Predators, and we're going to talk about what they need to do to turn things around in a week where they have 3 games. Before we dive into all of those details, do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Emma. Yeah, that's right. We saw it on Saturday. The Nashville Predators were shut out by the Detroit Red Wings. They lost by a score of 3-0. We're not going to go into all the details of the game. You can, of course, watch a video game summary on the Predators website. But we are going to kick off our conversation with one word to describe the game. So, Emma, if you had to describe that 3-0 loss on Saturday in Detroit in one word or more, because it's our show and we make the rules and we break the rules, how would you describe that game?
So I'm going to go 2 words for this one, but
Bring it.
One collective. Cam Talbot.
Seriously.
Listen, sometimes I know a lot of times that people like to look at, blaming a hot goalie as an excuse. But dude, sometimes goalies just get really hot and there is nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately for the Predators, they have faced 2 very hot goalies in a row, but especially Cam Talbot, 37 years old, his first appearance, his first start of the season looked like mid-season form. He was just lights out. There was no getting anything past him. And again, there are other reasons that the Predators were shut out, and we will discuss that. But I think, if I had to, like, my runner-up choice for, one word to describe was 42, because 42 shots, like 42 shots.
Not for lack of trying, y'all.
Yes. So got a really hot goalie. There's more than that. Yes, I understand you can't only blame the goalie because that would be an excuse, but you also got to give credit where it's due.
I'm so glad that is your 1/2 words, because so many people were almost disgusted that Cam Talbot looked so good. But here's what I want to say. You and I have said this on the podcast before. Age is not a disease. I understand he is 37 years old, but he is not Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, propped up in the goalie crease as just a corpse. I mean, this is a professional athlete who has won games, who has won championships, who is good. And yes, he's 37, but he ain't dead yet. And it really was. You have got to give credit to Cam Talbot. That was a phenomenal game from him in net. Nashville did everything. I mean, they threw just about everything but the kitchen sink at him. to try to get on the board. Kitchen sink ties in with my one word, which is also 2 words, Emma, because again, it's our podcast. We make the
We
rules.
make the rules.
My 2 words are Hell's Kitchen. I don't know if you've ever watched this. I'm not a huge cooking show fan, but it's chefs come on and they compete for a chance to become a head chef at Gordon Ramsay's restaurants. And of course, they come in and they're all highly capable, they're all talented, but then they are put in these situations that are high stress, high pressure. He is not unicorns and sunshine, Gordon Ramsay. He's not fun. And then they are timed. And then that just kind of creates this scenario where things may not go exactly as planned. Look, Nashville has a filet mignon roster, but that Detroit game created a situation that was very Gordon Ramsay-esque. It was timing, the pace of that game was very high. Cam Talbot, very frustrating to the Nashville Predators. Are there things, like you said, that the team needs to do better? Yes. And I promise you all, we will talk about them. But this was a situation where Nashville really was at a game pace and in some game specific situations that made it very hard to pull off that filet mignon meal that we all thought that they were going to get. Of course, we always reach out to our Locked On Predators insiders, before a game and after a game for their one word. Here were some of their one words. One, snake bit. And I used to hate that, but I think this is the perfect example of what it looks like for a team when they are snake bit. Another one word, ouch. Felt good after the loss to Dallas, because Dallas was a really tough team, but this loss felt a little bit like a gut punch. Another one word, juice. We got to see Juuse Saros back in net, and this insider was very happy to see him back at it. We're going to talk about Saros's performance as well. But Emma, you mentioned 42. The stats in this game look one way, and the outcome looked another. Nashville had the advantage in Corsi 4, which is kind of a way to measure puck possession, high danger chances, shots on goal, 42-22. They limited Detroit to 4 shots on goal in that third period. Nashville had the advantage in a stat called expected goals for, based on the opportunities you had. How many goals was your team expected to get? Nashville, according to the stats, should have won this game, but they didn't. So Emma, why didn't Nashville win this game?
Well, first of all, I think, before we get into anything that Nashville needs to do better or do differently, I do think we need to give some credit to the Detroit Red Wings beyond just Cam Talbot, because everyone's saying, oh, Detroit, they got to beat Detroit. And it's like, okay, yes, Detroit isn't Dallas, but Detroit also isn't San Jose. Like, it's,
Right.
they're a good team. They're very young. And I'm glad that you brought up the pace, because it's funny you say that, because I watched part of Detroit's last game before they played Nashville. They played against Pittsburgh, and I watched part of that game, and that was literally my first thought. I was like, wow, they're fast. Like, it's a young, fast team. So even if they aren't gonna, maybe they don't have like the sharp shooters, they're not going to be scoring all the highlight reel goals, like they're going to run you around and they're going to make you work. And so I think that we saw that in action. So you got to give them some credit. I feel like a lot of people were underestimating Detroit.
Agreed.
Do I think they're a cup favorite? No, but again, they're also better than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for. Now, that said, few things. I really just think that, once again, similar to the Dallas game, the Predators were doing so many things right. And it's unfortunate, because I feel like we were saying this last year at this time last year, which is, well, not here on this show. I wasn't here yet, but I mean, anyone who was watching the show or watching the Predators last year was saying, like, they're doing everything right. Like, sooner or later, they've got to get rewarded for it. And it took a while. And last year, may I remind everyone, 5-10. That was the Preds record to start the season last year. Okay.
Yep.
And ended in a playoff run. So again, I just, that's just me going on a little rant saying everyone needs to not overreact to two losses. I would rather, and you and I have both said this, Anne, that this was going to take time.
Yes.
It was going to be an adjustment. And certain guys have certain playing styles that are going to take longer to adjust to, what the Predators are trying to do here. Now, as far as what they could have done differently, the power play looked a lot like Andrew Brunette just said, okay, everybody go out and pass the puck as many times as you possibly can before actually putting it on the net. Like,
Yes.
it was very frustrating to watch.
Mhm.
And part of that is like, maybe that's what they were this is what we don't know, right? It's like, maybe that's how they were coached. Maybe it's just guys were too timid, too scared to
Mhm.
take those shots. I really don't know what it was, but like there was a lot of passing. But again, and that's in a game where there were 42 shots on goal. So it's not like they weren't shooting at all, but it was like, dude, if you're going to shoot that much, like, I don't know, that was very frustrating to me, I think. I mean, if we're going to talk about improvements, the passes were a lot crisper and cleaner than they were in the game against Dallas. I don't know that that really means anything, but I mean, cool.
Yeah.
But the other thing that really stuck out to me about this particular game against Detroit was how much line shuffling there was. There was a lot
Yes.
of personnel changes, and
Mhm.
that makes it hard. I think, like, I understand that every once in a while, like, again, I thought this made total sense when Andrew Brunette did it against Dallas. He said he was trying to spark something, so he flipped Colton Sissons and Tommy Novak in the third period. That was all he did. And hey, they went out and they scored 2 more goals. So it was like, okay. But it was like, it seemed like every shift there was a different line combination. And it was like, I used to cover the Carolina Hurricanes, and this was like the early days of Rod Brindamore. It was just like, put the lines in a blender and we'll just see what
Mhm.
happens. Like, it was just like, what are we doing here? And it's hard. Like, I'm not suggesting that I know any more about coaching or about hockey than Andrew Brunette does, but it just, it was hard to watch at times because it was like they looked a little discombobulated, and it's like, well, I would too, because you're going out there with different guys every time.
I had the same thought. I was kind of taking notes as I was watching the game because I don't remember things the way, as well as I used to, y'all. And I was writing down the line combinations. And I mean, it felt frantic at times,
Mhm.
keeping up with who was out with who. And that's something I want us to talk about in the next segment because there is a pro and a con to doing what we saw in the Detroit game. And I want to dive into that a little bit more with you, Emma. We also are going to talk about some things that were very good for the Nashville Predators as well. We're going to tackle those topics coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. If you are looking forward to seeing this Predators team play this season, or if you want to make some great fall memories with a live event, you have got to check out all the deals available at Gametime. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to get tickets for your favorite sports, your favorite music, theater, and comedy. Gametime has this great new feature. It's going to save you time. It's called Gametime Picks, and it makes getting tickets for your favorite event even easier. Gametime Picks is going to filter out the fluff, and it's only going to show you incredible deals on great seats, so you're not going to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Gametime has great deals right now on tickets for Nashville SC, for the Tennessee Titans, and of course, they've got seats available for Nashville Predators games. Gametime also has a low price guarantee, and they have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Okay, Emma, you were talking about line combinations, and I want to talk about that too, because that is something that I noticed as well. And it goes back to, you talked about what Andrew Brunette had said in the Dallas game, hey, I swapped Colton Sissons, who one of our insiders, I could not be more proud, referred to as Mr. P for Mr. Potato Head. I
Amazing.
The amount of joy it brought me when I saw Mr. P and Novak, I thought it's like we've raised you all from birth. I'm so proud of you all. But talking about, that switch was made in the Dallas game, and Andrew Brunette said, I was looking for a spark. And then we saw so many line changes in this game against Detroit. And at first I thought, well, it's because they're coming off the power play and maybe they're trying to adjust, or they're coming out of the penalty kill. But there were actually far less special teams opportunities in this Detroit game than there were in Dallas. So how do you see that working going forward with Nashville? Because you need to build chemistry, which means you've got to play together in a game scenario, versus how do you call something? One of our friends, Alex Doherty, works with the Tennessean, and he asked Andrew Brunette about like how long a leash do some of these players have? And I think Tommy Novak is one of those players that we wonder about leash length, because he has this opportunity on the second line with Stamkos and Marchessault. If it were you, and we're not the coach, just so we all know we're not the coach, but if it were you, how do you err on the side of building chemistry? Do you err on the side of a spark? What do you think we might see from Andrew Brunette going forward this week?
It's tough to say, and we've talked about it from that angle a lot with like how long of a leash is Tommy Novak going to get.
Mhm.
But the more I think about it, and the more, after watching the first couple of games, obviously we've talked about Steven Stamkos being, the big ticket item here in Nashville. He's the guy that you build an offense around. But he's also the guy that it takes a little bit longer for his playing style to kind of mesh with what they're doing here. So I think we should start looking at it maybe as less of how long of a leash are they going to give Novak, and more from the point of view of who's going to be the center for Steven Stamkos. And I know it sounds like a different, it sounds like you're saying the same thing, but it's really not, because it's less about Novak and I think it's more about Stamkos and what is going to unlock him. Like what is going to just set him off. And I think that we started to see that, he's a guy that like, yes, it takes time. You got to adjust, whatever, but he's a guy that you want to get as much out of him as you possibly can. And so, I mean, at one point, we're seeing him with obviously his usual line. It was Tommy Novak and Jonathan Marchessault, but then you saw him with Colton Sissons. Then at one point you saw him with Philip Forsberg, and then you saw him with Mark Jankowski. It was like, all right, we'll just put him with everyone.
Yeah.
Put him on defense. I don't know. I think it was just like, okay. It just seemed like it was a little bit of everything. And I think, to go back to your original question, I think that we are going to see, like, as maddening as it is right now to watch, I think we're going to see this for a little bit. I don't think we're going to see it all season by any means, but I would say like for the first, I would say buckle up, because it might be a pretty maddening October. If you got frustrated watching, as I did, watching all those different combinations and things like that. But quite honestly, this is the time to do that. Like, you don't have, like, yes, training camp's the time, but like preseason games are not the same. You're playing against prospects most of the time, and it's just not the same kind of game speed. And so this is like their first true competition, their first true tests with the guys that they're going to have on the roster. And so I think that, again, you want to come out the gate guns blazing, but I think that this is the time to do it. I think if you're Andrew Brunette, you're going to do more of this like throughout the month of October, because you got to try every possible combination you have And yes, that can be frustrating watching it play out, but once it clicks, oh boy, like look
Right.
out. And I think, I've been seeing people saying, like the same thing what I said about the goalie being hot and like, oh, it just takes time to adjust. And people are saying, that's just excuses. And it's like, no, it's excuses if we are saying those same things in March. But it is
Right.
October. There have been 2 games. So it's not an excuse, like not an excuse. And again, it's not like we are pointing out things that they've done, should have done differently or should have been better at. And like, honestly, you can tell it's good to see, at least after the Dallas game, like the players weren't too, I mean, obviously they're frustrated after a loss as they should be, but it
Mhm.
was like when you ask them about their effort and their performance, they're like, we really couldn't have done much more. And I really think that's true.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about the line combinations because I had this thought. What you want is to get Steven Stamkos going, however that happens. When that happens and Steven Stamkos is chawing along and Jonathan Marchessault is chawing along, then you can put Tommy Novak back in there and they're going to help Tommy Novak chaw along. And so it almost is, what do you need first, the chicken or the egg? Doesn't matter. I want chicken and eggs. So if it takes Mr. Potato Head Colton Sissons to get Steven Stamkos going,
Yeah.
great. Get
You
him
need the
going.
chicken to start going before you can add the eggs.
That's right. That's right. So I really think whatever it takes to get Stamkos going does not mean that that person is who he is going to be on a line with the rest of the time. Because I think once Steven Stamkos finds his groove, he is going to be the Stella that gets the entire second line going, whoever is the center on that line. So
Yeah.
I think you're right. We're going to see some changes. Let's get him going. Let's get him going.
Yeah.
I thought there were a lot of other really good things from this Detroit game. Man, you talk about your best players creating chances between Yossi Forsberg, Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, and Jonathan Marchessault. Those 5 players had 27 shots on goal. Now I'm with you. There were times in the first 2 games where I'm like, please stop making one more pass to the guy on the inside and put the puck on the net and let the guy inside in front of the net just clean up your mess.
Yeah. Doesn't
Like
have to be pretty.
I don't need style points,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
other than, well, JT Compher's goal was pretty nice
That
for
was
Detroit.
incredible.
But
Yeah.
other than that, the other 2, it was like a messy net front scrum and an empty netter.
Yeah.
Like that gets the job done. A goal's a goal.
A
So
goal's a goal. Yeah.
yeah.
What
I was
did
like,
you
I
think?
understand you don't want to turn the puck over, but like, come on. Like,
Yeah.
shoot it.
There is a cellular level for hockey fans that just wants to cry out, "Shoot the puck!" And they're like,
But also,
we've had
please don't be
moments.
that guy. Please don't
Yeah,
be that guy.
don't be that guy.
Sometimes I catch myself. I was like, "Oh, you're being the guy. Don't be the guy."
Yeah,
But
don't be that guy.
I was kind of being the guy during the Detroit game. It's like,
Yeah.
shut it. Only on the power play though.
What did you think of UC Saros? It's our first opportunity to see UC Saros really for a stretch. We didn't see him much at all in the preseason. What did you think of Saros in net?
I thought he looked fantastic.
My goodness.
Mid-season form, like again, and Juice is one of those guys that's kind of known for being a slow starter.
Mhm.
I think we didn't see any of that. I mean, I thought he looked great. I thought as was often the case in the last few seasons, he kept them in the game at times.
Yeah.
Made some really key saves, really big saves. Looked like he was tracking pucks really well. Yeah, like
I thought
hadn't
he
missed a
looked
beat.
incredible.
Yeah, he
Great
looked really
first
good.
game out. Yeah.
Yep.
Coming up, we are going to talk about how we think Nashville Predators fans should be feeling. And we know feelings are like farts, but we're going to talk about how we want to encourage people to be feeling after these first 2 games. And we're also going to tell you about some storylines coming up this week that we are keeping an eye on. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. This is the most wonderful time of the year for sports. We've got Major League Baseball playoffs in full swing, the NFL well underway, and of course, we've got the NHL underway now as well. The best place to celebrate October is at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. NFL fans, you can kick off your season with a big return at FanDuel. You're going to start with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with your first $5 bet. When you get a hunch in the middle of that game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more. And it's all on the same page where you place your bets. So check out all the sports details and all the action at FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. All right, Emma, the Predators have a chance to get their first win of the season coming up tomorrow night. On tomorrow's show, we're going to preview that Seattle Kraken game and tell you what we want to see from the Predators then as well. I've been around on social media since Saturday night, Emma, and I have seen some things. And some people are not happy. And I just want us to take a moment and just say, look, let us not turn Barry Trotz from hero to zero in 120 minutes. Okay. I mean, there have been I have seen a couple of takes that are just wild about like, this is all going to blow up in their face. And oh, y'all, 120 minutes of hockey, 120 minutes of hockey. So how are you feeling about it?
Again, I feel just fine right now. Like truly, I feel fine because we have played 2 games out of 82.
Mm-hmm.
So like a drop in the bucket. And again, this is the time to figure things out. And you knew with this roster, you were going to have a lot of things to figure out. It's not like you were returning mostly the same group from last year. And not, again, it would be different if like you were returning all the big guys, but you added some new depth pieces. Like, no, you have added some new big guys.
Yes.
and you need to construct, this offense around them and make sure, like we've been saying, got to get those guys going. And so we knew this was going to take some adjustment, and you'd rather them get it figured out now in October. Like, I quite frankly, maybe just it's the pessimist or the like superstitious hockey fan in me. I don't know, but I would be more concerned if they got off to a hot start. If it was like 2-0, I'd be like, "Ooh, I don't know about that."
This feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like, no, we got to build. And so like, again, it sucks while you're in it. I understand. Believe me, I was on the road with the team for the 5-10 stretch last year. Not fun.
Probably not fun.
Was not fun. Can confirm.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel you. I feel everyone who's saying that they're not, like they're upset and they don't, it's frustrating and this and that. And I just think, look, I get it. It sucks. To see that happen. But let's just take a deep breath and let's just look at the big picture. And we are not being like overly optimistic, sunshine and roses, everything's fine. We're just being realists here and saying, y'all, it's been 2 games. And statistically, this is the time to like not have your if if you're going to be building up to something later in the year. Again, we will both, I think I can speak for you, Anne, when I say like we will both be singing a different tune if we are seeing, the same results come March or April.
Absolutely.
But right now, no, it's not worth getting worked up about at all.
Yeah. We also had talked about the fact that this is just not an easy October schedule for the Nashville Predators. It's just not out of the gate, no matter how they're performing. And again, timing is everything in this sport, and you want to peak at the right time. So I am 100% with you. I get, we are so ready to see this roster succeed. We are not any further away from that than we were before the regular season started. So I just think don't adjust your expectations. Everything is going to be fine.
Well, I think because we've been talking about this, like you said, like since July 1st, it's all we've heard. It's like Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and we're going to the cup. And it's like, okay, but like, again, fantasy hockey. You gotta
play the games.
Let me tell you, or actually let my fantasy football team tell you, how fantasy hockey does not, or fantasy sports do not reflect reality. I started Dak Prescott while Jalen Hurts was on my bench today. So, again, let's just say that fantasy, good on paper does not mean good in reality. So, or that it could at least be, that I'm not saying that this team isn't good, but it's saying like it's going to take a minute. Like Steven Stamkos has spent the better part of the last decade playing with the same line mates. Like that, you don't just get over that. Like I think it's just going to take some time. So
he's still looking for the ketchup at Trader Joe's, y'all.
Yes,
cut him some slack.
Exactly. Yes, it's been 2 games. He'll find the ketchup. Just give him some time.
There are plenty of opportunities coming up this week for Steven Stamkos to maybe start to find his groove. We've got the Kraken coming up tomorrow night. We have Edmonton on Thursday, which is going to be a great game. Also means Paige Martin. If you are a friend of the show, you know that we love Paige Martin here. She will be here in Nashville with the Edmonton Oilers. And then going to face Detroit again on Saturday. Revenge tour, baby. But there's a couple other things coming up this week that I think are of note. I do want to shout out one thing that has previously happened. On Saturday, I don't know how this has not already become a national holiday, but we need to institute October 12th as Matt Murray Day. Did you see this?
Yes, I did.
Both Matt Murrays got wins in the AHL on Saturday. It's the first time that 2 players with the same name got wins on the same night in the same league, my friends. Happy 2 days after Matt Murray Day. The OG Matt Murray won 4-3 over the San Diego Gulls. He is playing with the Toronto Marlies in the AHL. And of course, our Matt Murray, the other Matt Murray, won 4-1 with the Milwaukee Admirals over the Chicago Wolves. So I just wanted to wish everybody a belated happy Matt Murray Day.
Yes.
One of the things I am most excited that is coming up this week, Emma, has to do with Luke Schenn. On Thursday, we will be celebrating Luke Schenn's 1,000th career NHL game, which is just mind-blowing to me because I am exhausted watching them play 60 minutes.
I know.
And he has played 1,000 of those.
It's so crazy. It's crazy because we just got through last year celebrating Ryan O'Reilly's 1,000th game. And, it for Factor, he's on the younger side to be hitting 1,000 games because he kind of came right to the NHL after he was drafted. But yeah, like it really is remarkable for, someone, just the longevity to be able to do that. I'm like, I do one like particularly spicy workout class and I'm like, oh, I got to lay down for an hour. And, I
played Top Golf yesterday and I'm sore, y'all.
Yeah. So
sore.
Congrats to Luke Schenn. Really, really special. And it takes a lot, not just from him, but, his whole family, his wife, his kids, like his parents, it really does take a village to accomplish something like that. So yeah, congrats for him.
What is coming up this week, Emma, that you are looking forward to, either with the Predators or in the league in general?
Well, kind of both, I would say. I'm very much looking forward to tomorrow, Tuesday, when the Predators host the Seattle Kraken. We will see in the building at Bridgestone Arena the first woman to coach on an NHL bench. Jessica Campbell. She will be in town with the Kraken, assistant coach for them. And to me, and this is something that I care very, very deeply about. It's a big part of why I do what I do for a living, but it is so important for young women and young girls especially, to see that. Like they just, for them to grow up in a world where they see that as normal and that that's a possibility. And they see that there is a very visible place for them in this sport, in this game, in this industry. And even if they don't want to be a coach, it doesn't have to be a coach, but they need to see the examples. Like it's a cliche, but it's true. If you can see it, you can be it. And so I think that it's so incredibly important. The first, but very much hope not the last, and shouldn't be the last. And I really like something that Jess said in an interview recently about, so many of us, women in the industry have had to constantly try to push the door open and just to get in. And now hopefully moving forward, girls and women will have that door held open for them. And I think that's a really powerful visual, and just really excited just to see that, to kind of, truly to witness history. So excited for that on Tuesday.
I love that. And I will say, I hope all of our listeners are as excited about it as we are, because it is a big deal. If you think it's not a big deal, you need to talk to somebody who maybe has a different perspective, because it is a big deal. And I will say, here to celebrate it, I've seen some comments the other way. We could do a whole podcast on those, but we're not going to. We're just going to look forward to seeing her here. And like you said, this is not going to be the last time. And if it makes you uncomfortable, or if you just think that maybe she's not qualified, buckle up, because there are a lot of qualified women coming right behind her. And so I am with you. Cannot wait to see it with my own eyes. It's going to be great.
Like, again, they were going to hire, it wasn't a diversity, a DEI hire, it was best person for the job. Dan Bylsma, the head coach of the Kraken, knows what he's doing. He's won Stanley Cups. He has been around this league for a very long time, and he knows what it takes to build a winning team. And he is going to pick the best person for the job.
Yep.
Male, female, or other. So I just think that it's incredibly important. I can't wait. I'm sure, and you and I will both be long gone by the time this happens, unfortunately, but I think that I can't wait for the day that this is not news anymore, where it's not just, oh my gosh, they hired a woman. It's just, they hired
a new head coach.
Yeah, they got a new coach. Cool.
Great. Yeah. 100%.
We'll be long gone by then, but it'll be.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Yes.
It's going to happen. Well, that is something we are looking forward to in the Kraken game tomorrow. Of course, we're going to preview on ice what we can expect from the Nashville Predators versus the Seattle Kraken in tomorrow night's game. So make sure you head on back here and listen to tomorrow's episode. Get you ready for Puck Drop. It's going to be 7:00 tomorrow night at Bridgestone Arena. We're going to go over all that tomorrow as well. Before we sign off here, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at The Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at ANK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work at Penalty Box Radio as well. That is going to do it for this Monday edition of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back tomorrow with that game preview. We'll see you then.